Okay, well, hi guys, it's Robert here, interviewing for Overtime Heroics. We've got Ash Williams. He is Welsh black belt. He's one of the UK's hottest prospects right now, and he's fighting on Polaris at the weekend. So, Ash, hi. Thanks welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Last few months been pretty weird for everyone, especially sports people. Like, how's prep been?
So I'd probably say like training's been maybe the best it's ever been because with the restrictions and limitations on running a gym, we've had a lot more time for a lot of athletes to be able to get together
Hmm.
and train. Obviously, we registered with the UK BJJ for elite status for the club. And we've been training as a small group of competitors for probably like 2 months now, and obviously because initially I was preparing for the ADCC trials, so
Hmm.
I already kind of was in camp. I say camp, but we train all the time anyway. But we were already starting to try to peak for this about this time anyway, because we had the trials in sight, and obviously trials were a week after Polaris, and now they're cancelled. So when they messaged me about 2-3 weeks into that kind of intense training, I was like, yeah, go on. I may as well try and have. I was more looking at it like a run out before trials, to be honest, because trials were going to be my priority. And then when Polaris match, I thought, oh, you haven't competed for. I've only competed twice this year, which is a really low number, and I like to stay
Hmm.
active as if I can. So I was like, oh, I'll just have a few matches. Then they explained the rule set, and then I was like, I'm actually quite glad now the trials are cancelled because, if I draw two or three 95 kilo guys, that could be problematic. It could be tough
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
that and then do trials the week after. So I'm actually glad the trials are cancelled now with respect to Polaris. I'm looking forward to Polaris.
Sick. Well, look, we'll get onto the rule set in a minute, but you said the past few months have been some of the best training you've ever had. Like,
Yeah.
in what way?
So I think lockdown gave a lot of people different opportunities to kind of have a look at themselves maybe and where they were at currently and where they wanted to go to. Like ADCC has always been my biggest aspiration, and I'd like to be the first British athlete, male athlete, sorry, to um, win a match and medal at that level. I mean, I've fought a few of the guys who did it last year. I've already beaten a few of the guys who were in last year's ADCC.
Hmm.
So I feel it's within my capability to do that. So through lockdown, I started doing a lot of yoga and a lot of weightlifting, which are two areas, like if you think of like an athlete as like a total like recovery, like, dietary, like jiu-jitsu, conditioning, strength, cardio, and, the whole kind of makeup of what makes an athlete compete at the highest level. I was neglecting a few areas, and when jiu-jitsu kind of got taken away from me for like 6-8 weeks, I kind of was like, well, I can't make excuses anymore. I may as well, because usually I'm always like, but I'd rather roll, I'd rather be on the mats, and I'm always like, I'd rather be doing what I'm meant to be doing, which is rolling, because I know a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes feel the same as myself, where you know I'd just rather be on the mats 3-4 hours a day and just roll repeatedly non-stop and just enjoy that, because it stimulates my mind and I get the best like results from kind of role. I've enjoyed it the most over my journey, but in lockdown, obviously that kind of got taken away, and I was like, well, I've neglected strength and conditioning for pretty much as long as I've been doing jiu-jitsu. My diet was always like 50-50. It went through stages of really good and then really terrible. And I just, I kind of thought to myself, do I want to be, I do want to look back in 5-10 years time and be like, maybe if I change these 3 or 4 things, I could have maybe accomplished a little bit more than what I am going to at this current rate, So
Hmm.
I started doing yoga for BJJ. I started doing strength and conditioning with Tom O'Hagan, which is a company called Grapple Machine.
Hmm.
Um, and then basically what we did is when we could resume training, we got a group of guys together and we said, look, we were all like 70, 75 kilos. we were going to train really hard. So we started doing a lot of like yoga together, then like competitive rounds, and then strength and conditioning together. And then most recently I've started adding in cardio. So I've always been a massive advocate that you don't need to run to be good at jiu-jitsu. And I've never done running. I've never been a fan of it, and I've really detested the idea of it. And I actually watched this program called The World's Toughest Race. I don't know if you've seen this on Amazon.
I've seen the first episode.
Oh, okay. So I watched that, and I was like, man, there's like these 65-year-old dudes like trekking 80 kilometers through hills, and I'm complaining about doing a 5-kilometer run.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. Is there more than one series on Amazon? Because the first episode, they kayak for like 12 hours or something.
Yeah.
That's
so
insane.
they kayak to the other island, and then they trek around it, then kayak back. It was like ruthless, and absolutely brutal. And I'm thinking, man, how are these guys doing it? And I kind of just established. I feel like I had a mental barrier to these things as opposed to a physical barrier, because I tried it out. I tried a 5K and I thought, it's going to be horrendous. And the first one I didn't really enjoy it at all. It was like, it took me like 34 minutes or something. I'm not really clued up on what's good times or bad times, but within 2 weeks, I've managed to start now running 25 minute 5Ks.
Mm-hmm.
So like that to me felt an accomplishment, and I kind of enjoyed the fact that I feel like a lot of athletes should have like a kind of a minimum of what they're achieving within these areas. So like, for example, strength and that, I'd like to be able to bench press 100 kilograms by the end of the year. I'm not saying that is something that makes an athlete good, but that would be like 1.5 times my body weight. So I feel like some stats like that are, if your jiu-jitsu is like this good and everyone else's is this good, then these figures and stats of like your recovery rate, your rest and heart rate, your squat, deadlift, bench, all these things are going to start being factors into who is going to edge the other person out. So I've tried to add in, kind of made myself a more all-rounded athlete. I'd probably look the best physical condition I've ever looked in. And I said I've been lifting 3 times a week, cardio 2-3 times a week, and then do jiu-jitsu 5 times a week, with like some real good intense rolling. Had a few visitors, which always gets me kind of pushing harder. So yeah, overall, I'd say I said about lockdown initially. I said for some people it might break them, and for other people it might make them. It could have gone either way with a lot of people, and I think it helped a lot with my thought process towards what I'd like to achieve and how I'm going to achieve it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who I've spoken to have really started to focus in on the strength and conditioning aspect, but it kind of flagged up something for me that jiu-jitsu guys are terrible at like strength conditioning.
I'd say jiu-jitsu guys are just bad athletes.
Yeah. No, you're
they're
probably
just
right.
bad athletes. As a whole, they literally go, it's a jiu-jitsu, cool, yeah, I'll do that. And then like, like for example, Brazilians, they're really bad for like partying and everything else that goes with kind of the lifestyle, the relaxed lifestyle of jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
But then, then the guy like Gordon Ryan comes along, and he does everything an athlete's meant to do, and all of a sudden he takes the jiu-jitsu level from like here to there, and he surpassed a bunch of peers who were ahead of him for a long time. But it's because he's doing everything he's meant to be doing, and when you look at guys like that, it's not a case of thinking like, it's all right for some, blah blah blah. The guy worked hard. The guy worked super hard. So I think it just gives everyone else kind of like a benchmark or goalpost to strive to achieve. It's not forever maybe, but I definitely am reevaluated myself, and tried to think about how I could make myself a more all-rounded and a complete athlete. I think it's going to be, hopefully it'll make a difference in my performance, but you never know. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, this weekend, it's probably the most relaxed I've been about a tournament because of the rule set. I believe it's not going to be direct reflection on if like my jiu-jitsu is the best jiu-jitsu on the mat. Like there's so many things to think about within this rule set. So I think it's a case of all the athletes can maybe just go out there and have some fun, which potentially could make it super, super exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess then, obvious question, what is your opinion on this it's a bit experimental. I mean, what do you
For sure.
think? And the rounds are really short. I mean, how do you think that's going to affect how the competitions run? Do you think it's going to go smoothly, or?
Yeah, so when I read the rule set initially, I thought, man, this is a really cool idea. Like I think it's a really interesting format, and I think a lot of people can get behind it. That up until like now, when I've competed on a ton of different rule sets, a ton of different shows, sub only points. Like the only match that I've not really done ever is time limitless sub only,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not particularly fussed on doing that rule set either. I think there's it's not always the best jiu-jitsu wins. Same as EBI overtime, for example. I don't always think it's the best jiu-jitsu that wins the match. Um,
EBI's
but
become very gamed lately, I guess.
yeah, definitely. Obviously, I've done 3 EBIs, and I felt like even from the first time I did it to the third time I did it, like the difference in the athletes and their attitude towards trying to win the 20K kind of changed towards like let's try and just win the title, and then start to play the game a lot more. But with the Polaris rule set, I read and I thought this could either be an absolute barn burner, and it could be the biggest spectating kind of style for casual fans,
Mm-hmm.
or it could go quite boring, because you get a lot of like, man, I don't know if I'm going to submit that guy, so I'll just ride the 5 minutes out against him, so then my teammate come out and try and submit their guy, but then their guy goes, I don't know if I'm going to submit him, so I'll ride the 5 minutes out. So when I spoke to the guys on Polaris, I think they've got it down to a T in terms of it's not can you be submitted, it's a case of can you submit the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come out with the attitude of trying to create that opportunity and put the guy away, it could be very, very exciting. But then again, it totally depends. For personally, like myself, the way I'm looking at it just really depends on who I draw. There's 8 guys on that team. I've looked through the roster. I believe a few of them are submittable within the time frame. But still, even that's going to be tough with 5 minutes. And then a few of them I've looked and thought, man, like it's going to be a very tough match if I draw those guys and I've got to go the 5 minutes with them. Like in particular, if there's a few subs and we run through our team more than once in a half, for example, like if especially for the first 2-3 competitors on the team,
Mm-hmm.
like once if it runs through and then people got to go again, I think that the size advantage could start to play a factor. In quintet, for example, it's obviously, you just have a match, and if you win, you get another match. But, in quintet, one win puts you significantly ahead.
Yeah.
One sub in quintet significantly puts you ahead. But in this rule set now, the one sub, unless it's the 3-pointer where, you submit the bigger guy, it doesn't really, you could really get caught out with that, because you could be like, man, we're ahead. They could take the foot off the gas a little bit, and then all of a sudden it could, it could be your weakest member against their strongest member, and then boom, like tables reversed, and it's one apiece, and it's going to be all to play for then, So I don't know how it's going to play out, to be honest. I'm excited to be part of it, obviously. I think both teams have got super good athletes, especially like entertaining athletes. That's kind of the key thing. There's not many stalling athletes through the 2 teams, and I think I saw an interview with Teta and Tariq,
Mm-hmm.
and they said 5 minutes, man, that's nothing
It's not a
sometimes.
lot of time.
No, so I think we're gonna go. I think we're gonna go. I think we're really gonna push, and the 5 minutes is gonna either be a like absolute balls to the wall, like crazy match. The only thing I fear is just like sometimes you get tied up in a position for too long, like 50-50 or close guard, or there's a few positions we could get stuck in where the clock could be running against us, and realistically, without risking something, you wouldn't be able to attack,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that could work against whoever's caught. So. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to go out there with the attitude of trying to submit everyone. My submission rate's not the best part of my game. I'm honest about that. It's something I've been honest about for the last year or so. I've been positionally and stuff. I'm probably one of the more experienced athletes in the pool. But when it comes to submissions, I find that a lot of guys on both teams, are very submission oriented. but they're potentially the guys who could get submitted the easiest as well. You know, so
Yeah.
like I think a lot when you push hard to get the sub, often it could leave you exposed. You know, so it's just that balance we've got to find. But I have had a few submissions in my my last few matches, so I am looking forward to giving it a go.
And do you think there's a particular style that the rule set favors? I mean, the one that really jumps out for me is leg lockers, to be honest, and like Martin held might be a danger, for example.
Right. So this is true. Realistically, on the face of it's true. But for example, for me personally, like as in me myself, like I'm hoping for Marcin. I'm hoping for Camille. I want the out and out leg lockers because I believe my leg lock defense is exceptionally high. I say this now and I could get leg locked on the weekend. But, I believe my leg lock defense is exceptionally high, and I fought a lot of a ton of out and out leg lockers. I've got Frank Rosenthal, Ethan Kranstein, Imanari. I've had a lot of people hanging off my legs who consider themselves, quite strong in that field.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping to be able to counter-attack off of leg entries. Would be kind of my goal. I've also been a big fan of Marcin Held for a very long time. So to share them out with him would be really cool. I'm actually going to. We haven't really discussed like the team order or kind of who's going to try and get who. But when I speak to Dara on the weekend, I'm going to relay the fact that I would love a match with Marcin Held.
Yeah, he's the person you'd like to face the most.
Yeah, I don't mind who I face on the opposing team. I'm not thrilled with the fact of facing like 395ers in one night, because that could happen. I wouldn't, obviously, I would do it. It is what it is, but I wouldn't be thrilled on that basis because the risk of injury and the risk of everything else significantly increases as the weight increases. I know the cap is 75, but I'm currently walking around at 70.5. But, I'm not cutting for this day before 75, so there's a good chance the 75ers could be 80 by the next day,
And the 95ers are going to be...
The 95ers could be plus 100, so it depends kind of like who or if anyone's cutting any weight for it, which I'm not sure if they are or aren't. But I would kind of like to try and get a few, maybe like two matches against 75ers and then one match against a 95er. Like that would be kind of like an ideal night for me. Out of the 75ers, I don't really mind who it is. And in the 95ers, I probably don't mind who it is. I know a lot of people, I know people might want to watch me fight Tarek Hopscott. He's fire, man. He's legit. He's a killer. So it could be that could be an exciting match. But I know a few of the other guys on Team UK are quite interested in facing him as well. So, and a few of them the heavier guys in the team. So that could bode well. If those guys do draw him, because I definitely think he probably is their biggest threat in terms of submission finishing capabilities.
Fair enough. And how do you feel about you mentioned the risk of injury about fighting the bigger guys? I think I saw an Instagram post where you're saying your team think it's funny or something, or want you to fight all the big guys.
But everybody in my team are like, I want you to draw this guy, then this, and they're like, they just want me to face like Tariq and Teta, basically. Like that's what they want. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're wishing this on me, because it could be a very possible, it could be a very real possibility, and you even notice in training, if you train with an 8, like I said, I'm 70 kilos, if I'm sparring with 80 kilo guys back to back, you feel it, you feel the difference. And even, it's not even the strength or the weight advantage, it's just a collision. It's just like the pure weight colliding with you. Like I like to wrestle. I don't know if I'm going to wrestle if I pull the 95 kilo guy. I probably will.
Just try it out, see what happens.
Yeah, but then if they hang off my head when I shoot, it's probably going to be horrendous. So I don't know, like I know a lot of other people are just saying like, I'm going to beat this guy. I love to face this guy. I know a lot of people talk like that. I know it's not really my style. I always just take every kind of opportunity and obstacle as it comes. Like if I got to face someone, I face them. If I don't, I don't. I generally try to do what's best for my career in terms of if I had the choice of a match, for example, like I would always pick what would make the biggest difference to me that given time. But then I've always also just taken short notice matches and fought super tough guys with 2-3 weeks notice, So I feel either way, I'm pretty prepared. And I haven't competed for a while, so it'd be nice to just get back out on those mats and get that feeling, you know. Unfortunately, like I think this format would actually work significantly better with a crowd. Um, I think the no crowd thing it does make a difference in these circumstances, you know, because, you know, when it's a 75 against a 95 kilo guy, I don't think it matters who it is. I'm pretty sure everyone always wants the little guy to win. So like
Yeah.
in a crowd, you know, an atmosphere room like that, you know, that's always encouraging. I remember like the Ethan match, you know, we had to stop because I cut my face, and the crowd were really pushing and cheering on, and you know, they really wanted to see the action. So it really pushed me to just find another level and be able to go another 6 minutes that pace that we were outputting. But obviously with no crowd there in 5 minutes, I'm not sure, you know, like if someone comes out and kind of pulls the level down, like pulls the pace down, I don't know if the other person's going to be able to just go, and I'm going to overcome that and just put the pace high, regardless. You know, sometimes it's easy in jiu-jitsu to match pace as opposed to set the pace. So I think with a crowd there, it does make a difference. So I'm going to be missing that factor for sure. But I will have my teammates there, you know. So I've spoken to loads of my teammates and I've shared the mat with them. I was meant to face Tom Halpin, you know, from the team. And I'm sure we'll face each other at some point. But it will be nice to be on the same team with guys I respect on the mat, you know, that are kind of striving for the same thing I'm pushing for myself.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's nice to have it's kind of nice to have a British team. I don't like to get too behind nationalism, but you know, when there's a bit of sport involved, it's just fun to root for your guys.
Yeah, for sure. It was an interesting when they messaged me saying, "Oh, do you want to be on part team UK and Ireland?" I was like, yeah, like, man, that sounds like a really cool idea. And, you know, if you run through actually the list of people on our team, you know, like, in my opinion, we're only missing 2 or 3 guys from the UK who would potentially make the strongest team we could field. You know, I think the prospect of, if this goes well, we face like a team Australia or team America or anything like that, you know, I do feel like the team we're fielding is strong in the rule set, and it's the strongest we could field. You know, I would have liked to seen like Dan Strauss, for example,
Oh yeah, of course.
standing next to me. You know, that would have been a good one. And obviously, I've just been training with Ross Nichols, and I would love to have had him on my team. You know, he's a brilliant grappler. So is Dan. And obviously, they've just been on the stages before, you know, at that level. But then the same for team, you know, EU. There's a few guys that you probably could have pulled into that team. Like I was hoping at Espin or who's his coach?
Oh, Fred, I don't know.
Espin Mateus and Tommy Laniger. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was hoping Tommy and Espin would have been on the team. I know they're gi guys, but their jiu-jitsu is just unreal. So, but it's going to be interesting either way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be sick. And you mentioned there are a couple of guys from from Britain who, well, so does Dan Strauss, and yeah, anyone else apart from Dan Strauss from Ross Nichols?
No, in a team of 8, I believe, minus those 2, we've probably got the strongest team
Nice.
we could put out there. You know, like maybe like guys like Taylor Pearman and stuff. Maybe I think, man, they're underrated, to be honest. You know, like these guys have competed on some serious tournaments and done unbelievably well. And they're just a little bit potentially unknown on the submission grappling scene, you know, because they've done IBJJF tournaments, etc. Past like Bradley Hill, got to be one of the most seasoned competitors in the UK. Probably he must have had more matches than I've had in a tournament level. You know, like the guy is very, very talented. And I actually spotted Bradley a few weeks back in prep for this. But overall, yeah, the team is massively strong. Like Dominic Dillon, I'm excited to see what he does. He looks crazy good, you know. So I am excited to see what the team can pull off. But you know, like every person's gonna have their own opinion of who the strongest 8 is on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
From the UK, you know, and Ireland. The only 2 I would have loved to have been on a team with is because I've not had the opportunity to be on a team with these guys, is Dan Strauss and Ross Nichols.
Hmm.
And if it was ever females like mixed team, obviously Fionn would be. She's on the card anyway, but
Yeah,
Fionn
of
would have
course.
been a great teammate as well, having competed at such a high level.
Yeah. Well, it will be interesting to see what happens because I mean, though it's been locked down, Taylor Pearman, Dominic Dillon, they're all like all the guys I've spoken to already. They're all saying their training over the past few months has been some of the best they've ever got. So I
I think
think
a
this
lot
could
of
be
guys are going to say.
fantastic.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys will say the same. Like I know, especially in the bigger cities where the restrictions were higher and there was a lot more kind of like obviously like where I'm from, there's not really going to be police or anyone coming to check. But my gym's like outside of Swansea. It's on the outskirts. Like it's in an industrial state out of the way. It's
Hmm.
not really a prime location. But like if you're at a gym, for example, like Ross his jiu-jitsu gym is inside of Shoot Box in London, which is a public weights gym. Like their
Gym
restrictions
box,
are going to
yeah.
be, yeah, sorry, gym box, yeah.
Yeah.
Their restrictions are going to be far, far stricter. Meaning his ability to train is definitely diminished.
Hmm.
But for a lot of us guys, I think a lot of people got a lot of good training in, and the only thing that's going to stop us really or hold us back a little bit is that competitive edge. From competing consistently. So for some of the guys, they might have competed for 6 months or 9 months or even a year. Like Dara, for example, I don't think Dara's fought recently. I can't actually think the last time I saw Dara compete. So
Mm.
it's a lot of ring rust, between the two teams. So we'll just see how that plays out.
Yeah. With regards to the different opponents you've got, do you tend to modify your style and do you sort of know how you change it depending on the person you get, or is
If
it
I'm
just come out?
if I'm prepping for a single match, I tell everyone this. I always keep like 90 to 95% of my game or my training exactly the same. I don't I think MMA guys they try to prep to beat something the opponent might use. They
Hmm.
prep specifically for something they might use. But what I generally do is I look at my opponent's strongest element of their game. So, for example, when I fought Ethan, 95% of my training was exactly the same as I always do, and then I added additional rounds at the end of every practice where everyone would start like half on my back or with one hook in or me and turtle or like with a gift wrap. So I did a lot of training for the back taking element,
Hmm.
which is probably one of his strongest tools that he's got. Same with like when I fought him in Ari, I started doing a lot of leg entanglements. Again, but just like additional rounds at the end of my training. But because this is an 8-man, I can't really prep for 8 different styles or strategies.
Yeah.
So, we were prepping for ADCC, so we did a lot of wrestling, a lot of staying top, a lot of passing the back takes. Like I've been trying to focus on taking the back in all my training lately because I feel it's the most dominant position and strongest finishing position for ADCC. So that's what I've been prepping for mainly. So that's kind of the style I'm going to be going for. If I'm forced to pull guard, it'd be unfortunate, but then I will be looking to tie up the legs again. Not primarily for my finish, but for them to look for my legs and then potentially counter or scramble off of that to create positional dominance. That's what I'm aiming for.
Hmm.
But you never know what could happen on the night.
Yeah, of course. But I guess one of the main ways that you might be training a bit different, you mentioned you'd had a few visitors down. So I guess you've got a big variation in training. And one of my mates, Sam Gibbs, has been training with you for a bit.
Sam is very good.
Yeah, he's good, right? I've not trained with him for a while, but yeah, I've kind of well, it'd be good to see how he does.
Yeah, he came down for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and he was excellent training. He was really fun. Um, like I enjoy having visitors because a lot of the guys in my gym, um, they've got similar styles to me, or they've got a lot of their jiu-jitsu from me. So often I can stay one step ahead, but not because my jiu-jitsu is bad. It's just because I know what they know. Do you know what I mean? So when we have visitors down, it's always interesting to see how their the style of their gym or varies how they come at me. Or we go together. So like one of the gyms I train with a few times or quite frequently is a gym in Bristol. who's headed by Tom Hagen, and they're very big on leg locks, and they're very submission oriented. So when I grapple with them, it's just a different feeling to when I grapple the guys from my own gym.
Mm-hmm.
But visitors generally just bring out the best in me. You know, they just get me fired up. Like, for example, Sam came down in Sam's game. You know, Sam really wants to push and train hard. So there wasn't really any settling. You know, it wasn't this chilling out. Like, you know, I've just been to a camp in Sardinia again. Like, I sparred with probably like 50 different people over the last week. You know, just different people from all over the world, varying from blue to brown, black belts, no anything. But it was always fun to see how or what in their jiu-jitsu they kind of excelled at, you know, and that's always the best part of jiu-jitsu. It's kind of like it's like maybe like, I don't know, like a Rubik's Cube or a Sudoku puzzle or something that just keeps changing. Like as you're solving it, it's changing, you know. So that's what's good about visitors, is it just makes your want to keep solving the puzzle of jiu-jitsu. It keeps that kind of spark alive, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's a big unknown, whereas you might get quite used to a lot of your teammates and know how they're going to play.
Yeah, precisely. Like, I think, you know, when you roll with your teammates, you can kind of 9 times out of 10, you could almost guess their next move for them because you train with them so frequently, you know, which is why within teams, it's important that different people kind of specialize or kind of research their own stuff, so that, like, you know, the whole game isn't coming from one central person. You know, like my brother coaches a lot at my gym. My coach Chris coaches at the gym, and you know, between the three of us, we've got different styles and different things we do, and I think that allows our students to kind of develop their own games and then add in what they want. One thing I've been doing a lot, which through lockdown I actually did a lot, is I bought subscriptions to different high level guys, like instructionals. So like Keen Online and a few others. But what I actually did is, instead of me watching them, I paid for the subscription, and then I got a few of my students, like different students, to watch them and put that into their game. And then when I sparred with them, then they played a lot of that, so I could try and problem solve it by sparring them, as opposed to, because like I think a lot of people watch high level guys and they go like, oh, I could do that, I could add that to my game. But you know, if you think about like Lachlan Giles, for example, or any of the guys who kind of made an exceptional difference in jiu-jitsu, you know, and then they've burst on the scene, like Keenan's worm guard when it first came out. Keenan's original worm guard, the first variation of it and the first evolution of it, like that's like level 1, you know, and if you're chasing to that, he's already there. By the time you get to what he does, he's made it different and got like 10 other varieties by then. So if you're always chasing these guys, I feel like you're not redeveloping yourself, you know, your own game. Like, I want to focus more on how I want to approach my jiu-jitsu and how I want to excel my own jiu-jitsu, and then add things in every now and again. But my favorite thing is always problem solving. So I love to get my guys to try new and different things, and maybe get different attacks or learn new like lapel passes or like front headlock attacks, leg locks, and then, you know, often they catch me. You know, they'll catch me out on the first time they do it to me, first couple of times, and then I like the Matrix. When the boys first started doing the Matrix, I found that an absolute nightmare to deal with. But I'd rather learn through sparring against it than I would be taught it in the defense.
That's a really interesting tactic, to get your students to learn it and then try and, or get your teammates to learn it and then go against it. That's not anything I've ever heard before, but I like it.
Yeah, I'd say it's more like my teammates, you know, the guys who are purple belts and above and are very active in the competitive jiu-jitsu, you know, when they, especially the guys who enjoy studying and watching a lot of other people's jiu-jitsu, you know, to kind of get good at it. I think it's more fun to be attacked by something and realize how good it is than you do the attacking and then it works for you. Because if I fought Lachlan, or if I fought Keenan, or if I fought anyone who excels at a particular part of the game, I wouldn't be doing the attacking in that position. I'd be doing the defending. So, you know, I want it to be put on me and me to learn and navigate how to kind of get around those things, which is why, like, I'm excited about this weekend, you know, because I got 8 guys in front of me, and they could come out with anything. I've been told like that, from speaking to different people, they're like, oh, this guy's really good at this guy's good at that. And like Tariq with his trigger platter, Mateus has got apparently a really nasty straight foot lock. Camille has got excellent heel hooks. Marcin has got excellent heel hooks. So it's just, but you can almost guarantee Marcin and Camille's heel hooks they just won't be the same. They'll have different entries, different attacks, different finishes. So it's just going to be fun, when they come after me and maybe they get me in something deep. I'll have to just problem solve on the spot. And that's why I like to do that with my students. I like people to just go and do their own thing, learn some stuff, and then bring it in, attack you hard with it. Because when you get surprised by something like new, then you've got to problem solve there and then, to deal with the issue at hand, as opposed to trying to think that everything ahead of the round, because you know what they know and they know what you know. So it is more fun sometimes to get someone to excel at something that isn't within your interest or isn't within your game, and then kind of beat you with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's a really cool angle for it. I like it. I guess we've covered off sort of strength conditioning, sort of skill training and tactics for the actual event. But I'm told you also take like the recovery aspects really seriously, like a lot more seriously than most jiu-jitsu guys. Is like
So more recently I have, yeah. So in the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to look after my body a lot more. I spent like 2 years ago, I spent like 9 months of the year in a cast, which I'm still awaiting surgery on. Funny enough, I've got pretty sure a torn ligament in my wrist, but it doesn't really flare up too frequently, so it's not too bad. I was recovering from a disc bulge then from an MMA fight where I got concussed. So like, I think the thing about jiu-jitsu is the finish mechanics of jiu-jitsu are always increasing. Because the defense is increasing, the finishing ability of all athletes and everyone who takes it very seriously is getting significantly better all the time. So every sweep now, a lot of sweeps attack your knee. They attack your knee ligaments. They make you rotationally defend as opposed to linearly defend. Like even everything on the arms, everything on the feet, your knees, your hips. Like jiu-jitsu is not getting nastier because it's part of the sport, but essentially everyone's getting much better at the application of breaking your body.
So not so much the gentle art.
Yeah, but that's why I try to, when I start going to see a chiropractor, I see a physiotherapist. I got a lot of different recovery methods I use, I'll talk about now. But when I first started doing it was because if you think like, for example, I will say like, if you train flat out super hard and you're like 8 hours sleep a night, that'll be enough. That will get, everybody else does that and they don't break their bodies daily. If you're like, I'll go to, like, for example, I'll go to a chiropractor. I'll go to a chiropractor once a week. But then, because I'm doing that, my sleep isn't as important. So, I'll just make sure that fixes me. But again, how is like a 15-minute session going to undo all the damage you're doing to your body? So we started taking it more seriously. Like I go in a cryo chamber. So we're fortunate enough to have a cryo chamber in the gym. So we do like minus 120 degrees. It's a fully immersive one, so it's not like the one where your head is out. I've not done the one where your head is out, but you're in like a full room and the temperature is minus 120 while you're in there. We do that 3 minutes, 3 times a week. Then I see a chiropractor who specializes in head trauma and neck injuries once a week. I actually went there today to see him today. And he actually does this thing called craniofacial release. So it's a really different type of treatment, but basically it's a balloon gets put up your nose into the chambers and it gets expanded into you. And it's meant to basically how he described it to me was like if you got like a sore muscle on your on your body, you'd get a massage to deal with the scar tissue. But obviously, if your head is getting hit or you're like headbutting the floor or you're catching elbows or people kicking you in the face or whatever, like you are developing scar tissue, in your head, and there's not many people deal with that, So craniofacial is meant to be very good for that. And I don't know if it's placebo, but I do feel a lot better for it when I do have the treatment. Then I get a massage anywhere up to 3 times a week. And then I track my macros to make sure my protein goals are good enough, and then I 100% make sure I get enough sleep. I think sleep is definitely one of the ones which is underrated, but you just have to do it. Like that's why when people work full time and they train, realistically, the time a lot of people spend on the mats when they work full time is actually the same as an athlete. So like, I'll spend anywhere between 3 to 5 hours a day training or doing some form of jiu-jitsu, conditioning, yoga, whatever, but a lot of the guys, train 3 hours a night. A lot of guys who work full time, they come straight from work and they train 6 till 9. But my point always is that the efficiency of that session that they've just done, it can't be as efficient as what a full-time athlete is having, because between the recovery, the mental recovery, there's no fatigue mentally or physically, less fatigue mentally, physically, so the session they're able to get is of much higher quality, which I always am big on. I talk to people all the time about quality of session over just quantity. I don't think it's just a case of train more. You can train more and still suck. Like that's just, it's proven fact. Like loads of people train 4 or 5 times a week and still don't excel at jiu-jitsu. If you take Gordon Ryan, in Henzo Gracie, like there's got to be thousands of students in that gym, yet only really Gary and Gordon have like burst on the scene and made an incredible difference in their achievements. Otherwise, if it was that easy, everyone in that gym would just be gi world champion and no gi world champion. That's what I say to everyone. I said that openly honest to everyone. It's the idea of the students does to be good, and they should be doing everything they need to do. Like obviously, I take supplements, take creatine. Obviously, I take protein shakes all the time. But the one thing I haven't tried yet, and I'm honest about, is I haven't taken any PEDs or anything that obviously a lot of other high-level athletes do take. And it's very, it is a difficult choice. I think as an athlete, I think a lot of athletes go, no, I'm always going to be clean and everything else, but then when 50% of the field is putting stuff in their body to make sure they can get that extra session or they can train that much harder, it's difficult to know that you're at a disadvantage, so
yeah. Well,
that's why
I'm always told that PEDs, the main thing nowadays at least, is to do with recovery and the fact that you can just keep going and going and going. And
that's what I've always said. I've always said if I were ever to take PEDs, it would not be to give myself an advantage. It'd be to give myself the ability to train, then to get the advantage. Like it's just literally, if there was like, if they're like, this is the perfect dose to just make your body back to, like, say I had a full week off and we found out what my optimum body capability was. If there was like 100% of my body's ability, then I would just take enough just to keep me back to the ability to train hard every single day. And that's one thing I think is a difference. It's like I said, I'm doing 5, 6, 7 different recovery methods every single week, as much as I can. I sauna pretty much every day. I said cryo 3 times a week, massage, chiropractic. I eat clean. I sleep. Like I do everything that really an athlete's prescribed or should be doing. But then it's still sometimes not enough. Still at the end of the week, my body feels broken, and then the mind starts to feel broken. And it's a tough thing to overcome all of the time. I know a lot of athletes don't feel like this, like, for example, like one of my teammates on this, Jed Hugh, I know he's got supreme confidence, and, his interviews, he always comes across very confident in his abilities, and rightfully so. He definitely is very talented, and he could definitely go very far. But then, when you're new on the scene and on the circuit and you start to achieve stuff, everything feels brilliant. But after 5 or 6 years, maybe, of just being short of the top tier, for example, that can mentally take a massive toll on an athlete. It is
you look for something to bump you up.
Yeah, the longevity of the sport is something that's very, very important. And I think a lot of people, generally want to compete until they're, 30, 32, 35 or maybe longer. Who knows? But, you have to stay at the top of the field to be reaping the rewards of what the jiu-jitsu lifestyle can be. So for example, with females, I feel it's really unfortunate for them, but obviously if they would like to have a family and settle down and have a child, then really, they are going to miss 6 months to 12 months of their career. And in that time, another female could come in, take top spot, and then kind of you just start falling down the pecking order. So that's why I think it's really hard in the sport, is that to stay at the top, you kind of need to be active. To stay active, you need to be training super, super hard all the time, to be winning those matches. And obviously, it's very demanding on both the body and the mind, you know. So it's I do like to try and take my recovery seriously, but who knows? Is it going to be enough to keep me in the sport for as long as I would like it to?
Hopefully, yeah. Look, I've just realised we've already got to 40 minutes. I've got I've got a few big questions that I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
out
no
of that.
worries.
But have you got time? Like, I don't want to
Oh
keep you
yeah,
too
yeah. Man, my the one thing the jiu-jitsu life is good for is time.
long. Nice one.
I trained this morning, you know, like I'm good to go. But yeah, when I always talk quite a lot when I have podcasts. So I'm always like, oh man, I don't know if I've overgone or whatever. So yeah,
No,
shoot
that's all
away.
right. Makes my life easy. Right. Well, there's 2 points that came out of that. I guess one that might be harder to answer. You mentioned you mentioned a lot of different recovery methods you use, and obviously
Yep.
it gives you that advantage and it brings you closer to that 100%. And
Yep.
they're all completely legal and allowed to use creatine, sauna,
Yep.
cryo,
Yep.
but you don't take PEDs because they're not allowed. What This is a weird question, but why do you think one thing's allowed that definitely isn't accessible to everyone? You know, saunas and cryo and stuff like that, not accessible to everyone,
No,
but
they're not.
PEDs aren't allowed, also not accessible to everyone, probably
Um,
just as accessible in lots of ways. Why do you think one's allowed and one's not?
100%. So in my opinion, more can go wrong with PEDs than with the other recovery methods, you know. So I think, especially when there was a lack of knowledge or lack of, I think the lack of knowledge is the big thing, because I think if you take PEDs with the correct knowledge, then the risk factor to your body and the longevity of your body is significantly reduced. You know, like,
Hmm.
and for example, like overusing PEDs could have bigger side effects for the long term of your life. You know, so it must. I'm guessing that's the decision a lot of governing bodies chose to take. You know, I have this debate with my wife all the time actually about weed, for example. Like, weed is illegal in a lot of places, and it's
Hmm.
now becoming more legal. But obviously, we've spent 28 years of our life under the impression that weed is bad, and it's a bad substance to put in your body because it's illegal. But if we spent 28 years of our life with weed and alcohol having reversed, then we probably would smoke uh, um, smoke weed and get the you know, the different effects of it and feel like that's okay. And then when alcohol starts becoming legal places, everyone will be like, "Ooh, don't know if I want to touch that," you know. So even if steroids became legal, I I, I still think it would have a taboo. You know, I still think people would feel badly about athletes who are open about using it, um,
Hmm.
which is why it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because in my opinion, if they just level the playing field and say, right, everyone can take them, it doesn't mean you have to, but they're just saying everyone can.
Hmm.
The idea of PEDs being bad for you, or is because they're banned. So
Yeah.
that it's because you know, they've made them illegal. Like, for example, in MMA, for example, I can see why they're banned. If you're hitting someone in the face super hard, realistically, you don't superhumans doing that to each other. You want normal humans, or the closest to normal humans you can get, you know, as opposed
Yeah.
to you know, people who are really abusing the system. Um, but but then if both fighters are on them, potentially it just evens it out, you know.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
believe they should just be legal. I don't. I think if an athlete
really.
wants to put whatever, yeah, I do generally believe that if an athlete wants to put anything in their body, they should be allowed to. And if other athletes don't want to, they don't have to. The same as, you know, I could eat a full, like, McDonald's diet, and someone could eat, you know, like, for example, if I was from a poorer country than someone who is in a very um, wealthy country or region, they could have access to, like, the best, like, protein, you know, everything. They have the best access to everything, like the cryos,
The
like the
cryo, the
saunas.
sauna.
Yeah, they can have access to everything. And then you got someone who, you know, can't afford, like, running shoes. Like, so that creates an imbalance. So what, should you ban all of these as well and
Hmm.
make everyone just train and perform at this level? But obviously, the main reason I believe PEDs are banned is because of the negative effect of abusing them in your body. But I think that happened years ago when the knowledge and information was less. But I think with what was on what people are able to get these days and the information they're able to get about that, I think it's way, way higher, and it could allow people to perform at a much higher level.
That's really interesting, and I did not expect you to go that angle. I mean, super well thought out, but I just didn't expect you to go that angle at all, honestly. I'd be surprised most athletes saying that they think it should be allowed. I mean, obviously, you're not breaking any rules or suggesting any unfair advantage for anyone. But
I don't take them myself at the moment. I don't have any plans near future to take them, But for example, at ADCC, like the actual organizers themselves are pro them. They say it's absolutely fine if you want to take them.
Really?
They state that it's not tested. They state, like, they point blank state they will not be tested. Like grappling, for example, is one of the few sports where you probably could get away with it for a very long time because you don't get tested on most pro shows. A lot of pro shows don't test you, so the temptation to take them to give yourself an advantage is very, very high.
There's a reason it's so prevalent, and it's quite notorious how prevalent it is in the sport.
100%. Every time I've spoken to a nutritionist or anyone who is clued up on these things, I always say, like, look, I'm not doing them right now, and I don't intend to. But I was like, what do you know? How much do you genuinely, like, from a professional point of view, do you believe that it could help? And everyone always says, man, like, people take them and win for a reason, like it's true. They must give you an advantage of some sort. I didn't take them, so I don't know. But I know a lot of people in the field are taking them. Like a lot of the Brazilians, a lot of the Americans are probably doing it. There's a lot of guys who are just flying up weight divisions. See them 1 year they're in 77, and then they're in 99, and you're like, how? And it's not like they're fat. They're shredded to the bone, and they put on tons of muscle mass in such a short space of time. I'm not saying, like, because it's not exactly, you don't just go like poof, muscle mass. That's not what happens. You have to
work, but
you just have to do the work. But it definitely gives you an advantage to be able to do that work.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, well, no, that's really interesting. Also, very jiu-jitsu of you to bring weed into the mix. It was very much the jiu-jitsu lifestyle to bring an argument for it.
Obviously, it's just like I don't smoke weed either. I don't partake in that. But I don't drink much either. Like I probably had, like, I could count how many beers I've had on my hands this year. Like I don't drink much at all. But it's a case of the image of it is bad because it's an illegal substance. Where could you imagine our whole lives if alcohol was an illegal substance, yet everyone enjoyed taking it because of the results and effects it had on your body? It's just interesting.
No, it's perfect comparison, and I think it's pretty universally accepted that alcohol has more negative impacts and more side effects on your body than weed does.
100%. There's no way I'd want to be drinking and then competing like this weekend. I mean, I wouldn't be like drinking in the weigh-ins and then be like, yeah, I'll just compete anyway. Like, that's hard going, and your body's not designed to perform under those conditions.
Yeah. Well, that was fantastic. And then the second point, all the way back to the recovery aspects, the second point I was wondering about, you made a good point. You said that a lot of, I guess, hobbyists or non-professionals train as much as professionals do in the same day.
They do, yeah.
And we've also mentioned the recovery aspect and the fact that you have all this stuff from MMA matches years and years ago.
Yep.
And on the other side, jiu-jitsu is one of the other things that jiu-jitsu is notorious for is long-term injury, like your back, your knees, stuff like that. Do you think that for everyday people, recovery is just underrated? Because I think it is, because recovery is a real hot topic right now.
I would definitely say so. Like, I think obviously there's a lot of countries out there who probably are, like, got cutting edge. They're ahead of the curve when it comes to this type of stuff, and then, like, the rest of the world catches up. But with regards to your question and the way you kind of worded it, like, when it comes to hobbyists, I think one of the prime it's actually the most it's the most it's the thing that makes jiu-jitsu seem the best, which is the full contact sparring all the time. So basically, you can contest what you're learning at 100%, and basically everyone views it as every day. You know, because like in boxing, in a lot of, like rugby, you wouldn't play a full rugby match every day. No
Yeah,
way. Can you imagine Wales playing back to back to back to back? They wouldn't and couldn't do it.
they wouldn't make
But
it to the match.
no, 100% not. But obviously, hobbyists will come down to training after work, train for 2-3 hours, and maybe spar maybe 10 rounds, maybe a day, and they'll do the same the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And whilst you're doing it, unfortunately, it's so it's intoxicating. You know, it's just so addictive. You like every time you spar, I always just want to spar more. I did it in the camp out in Sardinia. You know, I sat in the middle of the mat, and one guy came up to me and said, "Do you want to roll?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And there was a 6-minute timer on, and there was a 1-minute rest, and that was for 2 hours. And before I know it, I looked at the clock and I was like, what the hell happened, man? Like the 2 hours is gone. And I was like, I should have done that much sparring at all with like a bunch of strangers I'd never met before. Do you mean like I was like, oh, I'll just do like 5 to 8 rounds a day, and then before I knew it, man, I'd done 2 hours, and then I woke up the next day and I was like really sore, and I was like, because I didn't have any of my recovery methods that I used back home out there. And I felt the difference by the end of the week. You know, by the Friday, I was like, man, I'm feeling really sore today. You know, where on like this day back home, even if I was training harder, I wouldn't feel this bad. There's no way. You know, with the normal food, sleep, kind of like the rest and everything else I have on top of the recovery methods I use. But then when it comes to the average people who do it for a hobby, they're still sparring 10 rounds a night. You know, they're still sparring really hard, and then like, oh, my body's broken, and I'm like, you could just do 3 rounds of sparring. You know, you could have a balance where like your recovery methods and the intensity which you train, you know, they equate or roughly equate. But what people do is they don't. They like the recovery methods are like this, and the amount they train is like this, and that big deficit in the middle, that's obviously over time is going to deteriorate your body to a point where eventually, it happens to a lot of people, you know, eventually they need like a week off or a day off. Like, you know, it happens like maybe at the start of the year you go, I'm going to train 3 times a week. You train 3 times a week for 6 weeks. And then on the 7th week, you need 1 day off. And then you go, right, now I'm back to it. You train 3 times a week for another 6 weeks. But then on that 7th week again, then you need 2 days off. And because it's that build up in your body over time.
Yep.
And then the actual quality of your training, overall training, decreases, and it can actually make you kind of like, initially I said it's the thing that makes you fall in love with the sport. You're like, what, I can fully contest everything I'm learning.
I am so guilty of sparring too much.
From day one, like from day one, I can like just do everything like flat out. You're like, yeah, and everyone loves it. But equally then, like 6 months down the line, you get injured. 6 months down the line, you get too fatigued. You take a week off, and then you're like, ooh, actually, I quite like the feel of my body being able to walk down the stairs in the morning. Maybe we'll do less jiu-jitsu. Do you know what I mean? And that's what can happen a lot, is that people kind of fall out of love with the sport because of what it does to the body over time. But it's not the sport that's the issue. It's the mentality of how you approach your training and how you approach your recovery and how they kind of equate together, you know?
And you mentioned like efficient classes. Is that purely to do with recovery, not only recovery, but beating yourself up less in the classes, or was there something else to do with the efficiency that you were talking about?
Like it depends what you train for. I tell everyone the same when I speak to anyone who trains, who enjoys jiu-jitsu. The primary factor in jiu-jitsu is you should enjoy it. Like, I think jiu-jitsu community can be very, very negative on other martial arts. And the only thing I'm negative about other martial arts is the idea of them selling the fact that I'm teaching how to defend yourself when everybody's fully aware that what they are learning will not defend themselves in an altercation. So like, I feel more competent doing sport jiu-jitsu than I ever would have if I did like a street martial art. You know, so I've always, because you contest fully all the time. So like jiu-jitsu can be really negative on other martial arts and give them like a slight, it'd be like, oh, like, why are you doing taekwondo? Why are you doing karate? Like, it's not real. Like, if you had an altercation on the street, blah, 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 it wouldn't work. But I always just think if they're not doing it for self-defense, then anything you do in the world, which is physical activity, which is fun, brilliant. Carry on. You crack on, man. If you got 10 black belts and 10 different things and you really enjoyed every single time you've done it, I'm happy for you, because obviously you're happy. Do you mean, like, the main reason to do activities, generally in my life, which I've had or from my whole life, which I've done different things, is the enjoyment factor. It's got to be the first priority.
Hmm.
And then once you've got that priority and you think, oh, I love it, and I don't begrudge going. That's what you should do. You should never not want to turn up. The second thing then, after the fact that you've established it is fun, is just the longevity of it. Is can I maintain, and can I do it for a long period of time? Yes. Okay, cool. And then the third thing now is, why am I doing it? Why am I doing this sport? Do I want self-defense? Do I want to compete at a high level? Do I just want to do it for social reasons? Once you've got the fun and the longevity down, then you can just pick, your main factor for doing that sport. That's your driving factor. Then that's why you want to continue to do it. So obviously, I want to compete at a high level, which means I've got to train at X amount of intensity,
Hmm.
and I've got to achieve X amount of progression within a week, within a certain time. But a new guy comes and they're like, oh, I really want to get my blue belt. And I'm like, brilliant. How long do it take? I'd say could take you 9 months. It could take you 3 years. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, it depends how you turn up. Because your efficiency of your lesson is going to be your progression line. If you just turn up just for fun and you turn up just to socialize, if you turn up to socialize and you have a few roles, you've got no goal set, you haven't got any ideas in your head of how you want to progress, then it's, for example, like I use this is my favorite analogy all the time. Obviously you went to school the same as I went to school, yeah. And
Probably, yeah.
did you get all A stars or whatever? Did you get full 100% in all your tests?
Nope. Pretty good, but no.
But you turned up though, so surely you just deserve 100%.
Yeah, I
But
see what you're saying.
that's my point with jiu-jitsu is everyone's like, oh, I want my belt, I want my tags, and I'm like, but you just turn up, like you literally just turn up every day.
Okay, yeah.
Like, why? How do you think you deserve? How do you deserve something for just turning up? Like that's not what progression is. So I tell all my students all the time, like you should turn up with a purpose, but the purpose is going to be decided by you. And if it's to compete at a high level, then obviously your efficiency of that lesson has to be maximum. As in every minute you're on the mat, if you're on the mat for 60 minutes, every single one of those minutes wants to be towards the idea of progressing towards that goal.
Mm.
If you're doing it more as a hobby, then man, when you spar your 5 rounds, maybe 2 of them you take dead serious and you're like, right, I want to make sure I'm learning and getting better. And then the other 3, you could just try flying triangles. You could just do Minari rolls. You could do whatever you want. You could just have fun, because that's always the main purpose of jiu-jitsu. But like, for example, when I spar, I'll do it every maybe every 8th or 9th week. I'll try a crazy technique just for the full week. So, for example, I actually did Trichoplatas for a week, about 6 weeks ago, and all I was trying to do is Trichoplata everyone.
Yep.
Because I was like, man, I play my A game, I do my progress, I practice new techniques all of the time. I was like, why not just pick a crazy technique and just see if I can hit on people?
Mm-hmm.
I do now and again, I do a flying triangle, or I'll do a crazy back take, or I'll do an Minari roll, or a new footlock. I just think your goal setting and how you approach your session needs to match the outcome of what you'd like jiu-jitsu to be for you. So if you just want to do it for fun, cool. And if you just want to do it socialize, that's cool as well, no problem. But if you feel like you're going to get the development through the ranks and ability level, then it's going to be at a much slower rate compared to someone who's coming in to take the session very seriously.
So it's about picking what your goal is going to be and gearing that session towards that goal, not necessarily about being as efficient as possible every single time. 100%. Just depends what you need.
Obviously, that's what as in the efficiency of a session is just what your expectations to get out of it is. Do you know what I mean? So when I train, I always want to achieve goals. I always target certain people. If someone in the gym is very good at leg locks, give them my legs. When I literally every single person I ever meet, I always say, what's your favorite thing? And they're like, oh, X guard. I literally immediately put myself to X guard. I do like to try and see. I like to challenge myself and progress. That's why I believe I can progress in a gym that's not got world champions in it. Everyone says to me all the time, how do you feel like, you're going to get to the next level if you haven't got a gym full of world champions? I'm like, but every gym started like that. And I created world champions. Every gym's got world champions, didn't have world champions initially. So if I go and utilize my sparring partners, utilize my time correctly, I should be able to achieve what I've set out to achieve.
Yeah, well, that seems spot on. Exactly like Craig Jones didn't exactly come out of a gym of world champions, and didn't isn't it true like Marcelo Garcia, his gym didn't really start off with very many high level competitors. He was training with a lot of newbies.
No, neither did that Sister Acosta, the one who got
It's a lot of
meows and all
guys,
that,
yeah.
there's loads of gyms, man. Like I said, loads of people these days just go like, oh, I'm going to move to where the best jiu-jitsu is. But if you always keep moving from where there's bad jiu-jitsu, there's never going to be good jiu-jitsu there anyway. So I'm proud of the fact that my team and my gym can produce such high-level talent. I'm working with a squad of 20 guys most days, and over the next 2 to 5 years, I'm sure they'll all be killers as well. It just takes time.
That's cool, man. Well, look, I guess one topic that I said we were going to do, and we've just not touched on at all yet, like us, Welsh BJJ, because like you've just sort of covered off a bit of it there, like your gym, and you're proud to have stayed there. Obviously, Fifion, though she's not in Wales at the moment, one of the best women in the world now come out of Wales.
It's actually really. I was talking to Ross about this in Sardinia. It's mad because Ross actually is initially from Wales as well.
Oh, really?
Yes. So Ross is like 20 minutes away from like my gym, but he trains at a different gym in South Wales when he was going up the ranks earlier on. Fiona actually trained in with me until she was a purple belt.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was purple belt, but she did train in the gym as well. And obviously she moved to a CF24, another gym in South Wales, and then eventually moved to Ireland. Again, I'm not saying it's the gyms in South Wales like that are producing that. But I think it's just, I don't know, maybe it's something in the water, I don't know. But, like Fionn, myself, and Ross are all from really, really small geographical area in South Wales.
Yeah.
And we've seemed to excel, which is, it's really interesting. I think Welsh grappling is, it's brilliant. Like, man, there's a lot of good, but there's like, even if you look at the MMA scene, there's a lot of fighters coming out of Wales. It basically, I think we were just a few years behind everywhere else because same as happens to like even like new foods, new music, new recovery methods, anything, new sports. If they come from somewhere else, they generally go to London first, and then they go up to Manchester, Liverpool, and they go to the bigger cities. Then they might work their way down, and eventually they hit Wales. But then when we get them, we run with them and we do a lot better. When we start to excel. So it's really interesting to see the development of it. Like I remember, I think when I got my black belt, I was like the 7th black belt or something in Wales. I think it was like the 7th or maybe less. But I
think I looked it up. You were the youngest at the time, right?
I was the youngest at the time, and I think when I got my black belt, I was the youngest at the time. I'm not sure if maybe Fionn was younger. I'm not sure. But I was within the first 10 black belts in Wales. Now there's like close to 50, and that's only in the last 5 years. So you can tell the sport is developing. My coach, when I started with him, he was a purple belt, and Chris was the first Welsh black belt. Whenever he got it, he's a second degree now. So it's probably 7-8 years ago he got his black belt. But if you think like in Brazil, probably any gym you walk into, there's probably 30, 40 black belts on the mat in one gym.
Mm-hmm.
So it's showing that there's massive development in sport. And I'm super excited because I think the level in South Wales with my team, my brother's got his gym, and they're all super high level. They compete all the time. There's Bryn, who again is exceptional at jiu-jitsu. Fionn, obviously. There's guys more up towards the valleys, Jamie Hughes and all those guys. There's just great jiu-jitsu kind of everywhere you go here now. And it's just mad because we're just such like a tiny little insignificant dot on the map. And when I travel and people are like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, Wales. And they're like, oh, where's that? I'm like, oh, it's part of the UK. And they're like, so you're from England? And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. I'm from England. So, but like, I'm proud. I speak Welsh as well. I'm proud to represent Welsh Jiu-Jitsu on the scene. And it's just, it's just fun to see where it could get to.
Nice. And is there anyone coming up who isn't that well known yet, who should be keeping an eye on?
In Wales, I don't know about the other gyms. There's always secret talent everywhere, really. But
Yeah.
we've got a few really good up and comers. One of my top students is a guy called Tom Barry, who actually just recently won the Lakes, put your money where your mouth is thing, like a 4-man kettlebell tournament. And he's really developed exceptionally well over the last 2 years. And my brother's got one of his top students, this guy called Jamie Dix. They're both purple belts, both kind of under the radar. But that's where I'm happy to keep them there. That's cool. They'll come on to see when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
But both are training stupidly hard. And I think they got the right mindset to really achieve something. That's what the mindset is the biggest thing. I think which differentiates how someone is going to or what level someone could achieve throughout their lifetime. Because I said about Renzo Gracie's, realistically, in my opinion, and Gordon probably would disagree with this, but he's probably not going to see this, so it doesn't matter. But Gordon would, Gordon likelihood is he probably could have walked into any gym in the world and excelled.
Mm-hmm.
Because his mindset is phenomenal. The head on those shoulders is brilliant. He's obviously super dedicated, super committed, and he probably could have made it work anywhere. I'm not saying he would have had exactly the same career. We never know, but I'm not saying Dan has a bad coach. He's obviously a fantastic coach. But I believe there's a ton of good coaches, but I believe there's significantly less good students. There's the pool of student bases in the thousands across the world, but only a select few ever make it out of that pool to becoming a very high-level grappler.
Mm.
So it's an interesting theory, but obviously impossible to prove. But at the end of the day, there's exceptional information out there for everyone to get their hands on too. But why is everyone not a world champion then? I'm not a world champion. No, I'm not a world champion myself either. And I'm striving to win the world Nogi. I'd like to do an ADCC. But we are behind. At the end of the day, Brazil have taken every podium at World Ski for the last 20 years or something stupid. There's only 15 guys who've been on the podium apart from Brazilians. So anything like myself, Jamie Hughes, my brother, anything these Welsh guys and Fionn, anything we achieve, realistically is going to get surpassed. But I hope it does because, as Ross said, Ross went to ADCC, but hopefully in the future there'll be 10 UK athletes at every ADCC, and that will significantly improve our odds of producing results. Right now, we're kind of hoping on putting a lot of weight on a couple of guys' shoulders. We're these 5 guys could do really well. Where in Brazil, there's probably purple belts in Brazil who could wreck me. Who know, but they're not on the stage. They're not on the stage, and they've not got the ability to be put out there. But one day they will be, and we'll see. So I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, well, it was interesting what you said about stuff you're doing now will get surpassed. I think that's the same for just about any sport. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in the UK is relatively young. I think Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in general, in the grand scheme of things, as a sport, is relatively young, and it should get surpassed.
I say this about everything. Have you seen have you ever seen the video of the 100-meter sprint from 30 years ago compared to the most recent Olympics?
I've not, no.
So it's mad because one stud on the boot of the Olympians 30 years ago weighs the same as the whole boots of the Olympians now. So the actual the stud on the bottom of the shoe weighed exactly the same as the full trainers of the athletes currently.
That's mad.
Yeah. So our understanding, our technology understanding, and even come down to kit, uniform, everything else is progressively excelling all of the time. So can you imagine the rugby, Wales rugby team now playing Wales rugby team from 30 years ago? I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good match, but
who's going to win.
I know who I'd put my money on. Do you mean even just out of just athleticism alone, how hard they can run, how fit and strong they are compared to guys who are working full-time jobs and trying to represent their country. So I do think we'll all get surpassed, but I'm certainly going to try and stamp myself, into the history books in terms of just trying to be the first kind of Welsh male athlete to achieve stuff that people didn't think was going to happen. So I might might regret and not achieve what I set out to, but I certainly am confident that I can achieve a few things still.
Nice one. And I guess just last point, and if you're talking about stuff you're going to achieve in the future, have you got anything lined up for the rest of this year? I mean, assuming any of it happens.
ADCC trials in December. I'm not one of those people like write stuff down or put a poster on a wall or like visualizing that type of stuff. But if I did, my room would just be filled with ADCC posters,
Nice.
and that would be the overall goal. Like I'd like to defend my Polaris titles. That would be brilliant. I'm just looking for good matches. The biggest issue we've got right now is just the fact that no one from America can fly in, or I can't get there. So I'm ranked 10th right now, but the other 9 guys are still competing. They're still competing actively in America against each other.
Yeah.
So it is frustrating position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be like this for, I don't know how long. It's not going to change over winter. It's going to be like this for a year or so.
But we can only do the work we can do. I always tell everyone, if it's out of your control, then you shouldn't concern yourself with it. I can only control what I'm going to do and how I'm going to make myself better as an athlete. And hopefully this weekend, you'll see a version of that. But equally, I'm not a finished article, so could compete, could go wrong, and I'm not going to be deterred or feel any less about myself from any setbacks. I say this to everyone, even people get injured all the time in the sport. I say, man, like, if you do the sport for 20 years, like that 2 weeks you took off for a bad shoulder, that's like a blink. That's a nothing.
Yep.
So like one match isn't going to define like me as a person or my ability overall. So I'm just going to keep competing. And I like Craig Jones, Lachlan Jazz, Gordon Ryan, like they all had their day, like their day, like the one day that defined them for who they are, and I've just got massive faith that I will have my day at some point. It might not be this year, next year, but I'll keep working. I'll keep putting the effort in, keep putting the work rate in, and one day I will string together 3 or 4, hopefully 3 or 4 very convincing wins, and it's just going to be the hard work's paid off.
Awesome. And is there anything at all we've not talked about that you were keen to say about in an interview?
No, I've got to be honest. I've got so many different things about jiu-jitsu that I feel is relevant for people to kind of add into the game or talk to or talk about or listen to. But there's a lot of other much wiser people out there in the world than myself who could probably articulate in different ways.
Yep.
But I always say the same thing to everyone: as long as you're enjoying it, just keep doing jiu-jitsu. Like that's I've always loved it and probably will always. So I'm just gonna keep training hard, and if anyone is interested in any of my ideas, and please feel free to reach out, shoot me a message, drop me a phone call, whatever. I'm always accessible to pretty much anyone. I'm pro the growth of jiu-jitsu, so that's all.
Awesome. Well, look, man, we've done longest interview I've done to date, I think. So this is awesome. Thanks for taking so much time to talk to me, and I'm looking forward to Polaris. It's going to be fucking awesome.
I hope so. I told all my family, obviously it's getting obviously we're competing on the Saturday, but it's getting shown on the Sunday. So I told my family, I was like, if it goes well, I'll let you watch it. If I come home like in a sling or a cast, you're not watching it. No, exactly. So, it should be fun though. I'm looking forward to it. It's interesting,
Awesome. Well, look, man, thanks again. And I'll be watching.
No stress. Cheers, Rob.
Awesome. Cheers.
Bye.